At 6 p.m., I'll call the meeting to order. Would you please stand for the invocation presented by Austin Loza for the Director of Fellowship of Christian Athletes and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Lord, we give thanks for today and we come in an attitude of gratitude to be in a position in such a unique community, God. Lord, we give thanks for this diverse yet heritage-full community, Lord. I pray that today we come together like those in the days of Nehemiah in one accord saying, let us rise and build. So before you, God, we strengthen our hands for the good work you have called us to do with the gifts you have blessed us with. May you be glorified with our actions today. It's in your Son's name that we pray. Amen.
Flag is over here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. You do your part first? Okay. I don't care. Go ahead.
You want to announce the item? Okay, we'll start off the meeting with employee recognitions. I have 3 today, 2 from the street department and 1 from the police department. We have Adrian Flores and Michael Rhodes from the street department. Y'all can come up, please. Looks like we have a 3rd crew member with us. Got a letter from a Miss Barbara Franklin. Sent me a handwritten letter. She says, my name is Barbara Franklin and I moved to Fredericksburg last September 2021. Last September we enjoyed a storm which left debris backed up in the culvert next to my home. I happened to spot the street department vehicle taking care of some other business. 2 gentlemen from the street department, Adrian and Michael, were present. They were about to do some other business when I approached them inquiring who to contact about cleaning up debris and growing vegetation causing the backup. These gentlemen immediately responded with a call to their supervisor. And the very next day, 3 gentlemen, plus a very skilled bobcat operator, cleaned the debris, filling a dump truck and carrying it away. It was such a blessing to be spoiled by such responsiveness. I had good intentions of writing a letter to the newspaper or even having a pizza party at your office. However, I failed to act upon attending a city council meeting and seeing how faithful workers were honored and even receiving a gift of sorts. I was reminded of the fine men from the street department. It would be my pleasure to follow through on the pizza party. However, I ask your forgiveness for not being as proactive as the street department gentlemen were. I'm appreciative and humbled by the fine men I met at the street department. Sincerely, Barbara Franklin. Okay, the next is police department. Dustin Schutz. We have Dustin with us. Maybe outside. There we go. Did I say your last name right? Schutz. I'm sorry. While he's walking up here, there's a picture of every recognition that I've given with a member of the PD in the hallway out here, and every one of them I'm wearing a blue shirt. So here we go again. Okay, this was an email from Nicholas Kruppala, who's an investigator with Gillespie County Attorney's Office. He writes in to Sergeant Reinhardt. and says, I wanted to commend one of your officers on his professionalism and dedication in a recent DWI case, which went to a contested pretrial on August 4th, 2022. Immediately upon receiving the subpoena, Officer Schutz took the initiative to come to the prosecutor's office and discuss the case in preparation to testify. Officer Schutz's demeanor on the stand was that of a veteran officer, despite being his first time to testify. The time he took out of his day beforehand was instrumental with him being able to provide coherent and accurate testimony without letting the defense counsel rattle him. Furthermore, during his pretrial with Mr. Wadsworth, issues with discovery were discussed, and Dustin took the initiative to gather the paperwork and bring it to the court with him, allowing the state to produce the documents immediately upon the court ordering us to relocate them. His forward thinking helped the prosecution of the case immensely and showed that when it comes to getting ahead of the case, he clearly followed the 7 P's of planning. Thanks, Nicholas Krupla. Thank you, Officer Shep.
Sherry Nightingale, are you here? And associates. These ladies are with the local DAR chapter. Whereas September 17th, 2022 marks the 235th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. Whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designating September 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, I, Gerald Hoover, Mayor of the City of Fredericksburg, Texas, in the state of Texas, by virtue of the authority vested in me, do hereby proclaim the week of 17th through 23rd September as Constitution Week in the City of Fredericksburg, and urge all citizens to reaffirm the ideals of the framers of the Constitution that they had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties, remembering that lost rights may never be gained. Thank you. Thank you. Thank y'all for bringing it up. See you next year. So I wonder how many of you know that the first manned air flight took place in Gillespie County? Well, okay. Family members, right? Whereas Jakob Brodbeck, born in Germany in 1821, immigrated to Texas in 1846 and arrived in Fredericksburg in 1847 to become its second school teacher. And whereas Jacob Brodbeck also served the community as county surveyor, district school superintendent, and county commissioner. And whereas Jacob Brodbeck married Christine Behrens and raised 12 children on a farm in Gillespie County. And whereas Jacob Brodbeck, master inventor, designed and built the first powered aircraft. It was flown on September 20th, 1865. And whereas Jacob Brodbeck has been declared the father of aviation by 2 Texas governors, and Gillespie County is the birthplace of aviation, it is appropriate for the city of Fredericksburg to honor him on this, the 157th anniversary of his first flight. Now, therefore, I, Gerald Hoover, Mayor of the City of Fredericksburg, Texas, and the state of Texas, by virtue of the authority vested in me, do hereby proclaim that Tuesday, September 20th, 2022, as Jacob Broadbeck Day in the city of Fredericksburg, and urge all citizens to attend a ceremony to honor the inventor and builder at the Gillespie County Airport Terminal beginning at 9 a.m. on the anniversary of his first flight. And this is brought about by the energy of my good friend Gwen Fulbrook. Gwen, come and accept this proclamation, if you will. You want everybody to stand and come? Okay. All of you who are here to honor Mr. Broadbeck, come on up. Honoring ceremony tomorrow at 9 a.m. at Airport All right. We have some public comments on the agenda. Oh, let me go over the written comments as well. Received one from Carolyn Schultz, imploring us not to raise taxes, imperative on the families, what's going on these days. Just to be aware of the struggles that families are having in Gillespie County. A long comment from Jeanette Hormuth about the tax rate, suggesting the no new tax rate should be the norm, not the exception. Is this really the time to be increasing the city budget and charging taxpayers? And please find a way. And finally, from George. Yep. Let's see. Did you have personal comment, or you just submitted some penal code information?
I'll speak later.
You're going to speak later. Okay. Christine Burdick.
I was wanting to direct the tax rate as well. I am the Director of Operations for nonprofit Victory Fellowship Church. I've been there for 17 years. We have employees, including a volunteer coordinator for the Meals on Wheels. We have a 20-year veteran. We have a teacher at Heritage. We have the county clerk, myself. All of us are employed as a second job already. Currently, we're homeowners, and we don't have any more time to give to take up a third job. And so, on behalf of our employees that are working with us as a second job, my husband, he is the pastor, and his last raise was 2016. So really would ask that you would consider the livelihood of those around you, that we're not making any more money as citizens here in Fredericksburg. And I would just ask that you would just consider that as you look at the increases. Our homeowners insurance has doubled since 2020. So the people that we serve within our congregation also are not, they're not attorneys, they're not people, they're normal people that will not be able to continue at this rate as increases come by hundreds each year for not just one avenue, but my own house, my appraisal has tripled. My health home insurance has doubled in 2 years. And so I don't know how much longer we can fight. It's exhausting to fight constantly, whether it's our appraisal or just even our taxes. So I just would want to encourage you as a citizen of still working that your house payment goes up every time these taxes go up, every time this appraisal goes up, every time, we turn around for insurance. So I just would encourage you to take that into consideration tonight. Thank you.
Sandra McDonald.
I'm Sandra McDonald, and you all are probably sick of me. You know me now. And I wasn't going to talk tonight, so I had no notes. But I was driving over here, and I was thinking about the taxes, you all, us, and I like to connect dots. And I thought, what is the difference with us, the minority that we're called, and you all? And first of all, I want to tell you what we have in common. We love this city. You all are really nice people. I've met with some of you. I know that. And I trust that you truly have the best intent for this city. And I mean that, as do we. So I was trying to put the puzzle together, and I thought, so what's the difference? And the first thing I want to say is we're not a minority. There is a big majority. We speak for that majority because they are either too afraid to come or for some reason they can't come, and we are their voice. The next thing that I want to say is we don't trust our federal government. I think you all have more faith in the federal government than we do. Inflation's not going to go down. It's going to go up. They have done a great job in 2 years destroying our economy, and they have no intention of stopping. And when it comes to taxes, there's a big gap between middle class, wealthy, and people who struggle every day, just like Christine said, trying to pay their bills. And all I'm saying to you is, knowing that this federal government is not on our side to help us, I'm urging you, let's do this locally. Help your people that live here, the ones who struggle every day to put food on their table, gas in their car, pay their bills. They are citizens too, you all, and they deserve a happy life here also. Thank you. I never take for granted being able to speak.
Annette Bennett.
Thank you, Annette Bennett, Fredericksburg. I want to say that I support a tax rate lower than the so-called no new revenue tax rate of 0.1652. I think we should acknowledge that this rate is misnamed. With the new housing development, new home sales, increased appraisal values, new hotels, the city would still receive new revenue even at this rate. I urge you to recognize that while the city suffers from the lack of low-income housing, the problem would be made worse by not lowering the rate below 1652. In effect, 1652 or above is decreasing the ability of low-income housing by increasing the cost of doing business in the city of Fredericksburg. That means that there are higher costs for every B&B, every rental property, every hotel, every restaurant, every store, every winery. It means that that every property will pass along their increased cost. It means that we will have a harder time attracting wait staff, teachers, and hospital workers to support our infrastructure. Is that what you want? I suggest that is what you will get by not lowering the tax rate below 16.52. The buck stops here. You cannot point to the other taxing entities to justify increased taxes for our city. You cannot point to a bloated city budget to justify increased city taxes. Please exercise fiscal restraint and vote for a tax rate less than 0.1652. Thank you.
Jeanette? Ormuth?
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I also strongly urge the council to show restraint on the taxpayer's burden and adopt at very least the no new tax revenue 0.165. Below would be better, and adjust the budget accordingly. As I've said before, I've been here 30 years. This is my home. I've been part of Fredericksburg. I photographed the 150th anniversary for the city, documented it. I raised my kids here. My kids have been in with the music and everything else here. And I have one son that is now graduating, is now a naval pilot. Another son is working on putting a business together. And frankly, I've said this before, I'm being taxed out of my home, literally. And I don't know how long. It's getting very close because every year those increases, they compound. And in the city, we already have $120 extra on the utility bill, not including the fact that utility rates have gone way up too. We're paying some people maybe $100 more. And then you add that, then add the tax, property tax here, then we add the tax from the school, from the county. And then you go to the grocery store and everything is so much more. Just butter is 25% more for the butter I get. Eggs, everything is up. Gas, we're paying double, right, or more for our gas. Add that up. This is all hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars if you would add it up. Who can do it? And I'm one of the people that I feel that you have, let me say this. You've all been entrusted as representatives of the people to whom you're called to serve. You desire to protect and preserve our way of life, our communities, families, and hardworking employees of this town, not to mention your concerns regarding the problem of affordable housing. Housing is no longer affordable when the tax rate continues to rise faster than wages can keep up. The inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, not to mention the right of private property, all of which you have been pledged to protect through your oath to uphold the Constitution, the contractual agreement between the government and the people, are increasingly being infringed upon by the unreasonable imposition of these continued taxes. The reality for me, as many, is that we're being taxed out of our home. I know so many people that have moved away. And soon, where am I going to go? This is my home. And I'll be ashamed to lose my property because I can no longer pay the taxes. So please, I ask that you consider no new revenue or preferably below. Thank you.
Keith Bell?
Mayor, Council, howdy. Good to see you all again. My apologies, I couldn't make it to the the ARPA hearing that we had, I have a job, and it was at 1 p.m., So, speaking of which, I'd like to start off kind of with that. I believe that it was presented that the condition of taking the ARPA funds was, among other things, to prevent taxes from being raised, and now we're looking at a tax increase. So, I believe on the surface of this, there is sort of an obligation in place. But on the budget, so one thing I noticed was, of course, to kind of segue right into that, is the expansion of broadband that is sort of being planned based on the ARPA funds. I am unsure, I may have missed this, of course, because I did miss that meeting. I am unsure that the city did any sort of economic impact assessment, sort of based on the fact that you would be competing with local businesses, sort of, constructing your own broadband expansion, and on the tax rate. I have also yet to see it addressed how we were over budget last time. We were over budget last year by $8 million, my understanding is, with the proposed tax increase, we would be by 13 million. That's a lot. So in addition to this over budget, right, we have this huge window of many millions of dollars, and we're in a recession, right? And other people have mentioned this. So it's a very bad time for one, but I also want to echo calls for a lower tax rate. Even with the present tax rate, we're seeing these heritage businesses like Dooley's close, right? They can't pay the bills anymore, right? Like, you shouldn't have to run a luxury boutique to stay afloat, right? Like, something has sort of gone terribly wrong that's the case. So I'll conclude with this. I call on, at the least, a no new revenue rate. I believe that would be the right thing to do given the circumstances. Long term, I believe the goal of the city should be ultimately to relieve citizens of this tax burden that is crumbling sort of more and more businesses around us. It's damaging the residents. They can't even, and there are people who have been taxed out of their homes. There are people who have moved. So I call it a no new revenue rate. Long term, lower taxes. Thank you all.
Tom Marshall.
My name's Tom Marshall, and I'm a resident. The public has been commenting against ARPA funds since before many of you were elected. Last week, this council took action that would suggest that no one has been listening to all public comments. I'm speaking about last week's unanimous decision to not return ARPA funds. Yes, some of our concerns were addressed in the well-prepared reply to the public concerns and comments. Completely absent was the mention of any constitutional concerns. And I also heard that unless I'm a member of the Texas Municipal League, the organization that told a blatant lie to us about ARPA, or an elected member of some higher level of government, or a lawyer who has no idea about the citizens of this city, who has been practicing 2,000 miles from here, then my words don't carry much weight. I also heard that the words of your sworn oath of office in regards to supporting our constitutions do not carry much weight. Is there any argument that liberty is a constitutional right? Is there any argument that more government means less liberty? Is there any argument that you swore to support our constitutions? Mayor Hoover, you did comment that federal government intrusion into our lives is becoming more the norm. Last week, you all added to that intrusion. In your response, you also stated that you felt that the benefits outweigh the risk. That is a fair subjective analysis. But did you analyze the benefits against the non-monetary cost? What is the cost of liberty? What value do you put on liberty? My analysis concludes that liberty to you is a fleeting dream. Almost 250 years ago, many people dreamed of liberty. Then and since then, many people have given their lives for liberty. Did you consider that cost in your analysis? I sincerely hope the answer is no. That would have been an error of omission that is forgivable. As someone who put their life on the line for liberty, I could not forgive, much less respect, anyone who considered the cost of liberty and then bargained it away so cheaply.
All right, that concludes the speakers who signed up to speak on the agenda.
Mayor, I was the first one to sign up on item 8A. It is on the agenda. I have not heard my name at all.
We haven't gotten to 8A yet. Let me check here.
What will those other people speak on?
Okay, Jerry, you want to speak on the budget and tax rate?
Yes.
Okay, come on in. I have you on the public hearing item. But you are welcome to speak on that item. That's what everybody else will speak. Okay.
Jerry McCorkle, I live in Fredericksburg. I was at the meeting last Wednesday out at the golf course, and I believe I heard Clint Bailey say he wanted to ask for a COLA raise of 7% for the city employees. I don't know how many of you own your own business, but unless you're making a profit, I don't see giving anybody a raise. I worked for the space program and NASA was there. I was a subcontractor, and we never got COLA raises, but NASA did because they're government people, and most of them are retired officers in like a GS 12 or 13 rating, having that thing, and they got the top pay there. And I'm totally against the city budget offering 7% COLA raise in the fact that we're in a recession right now. President Biden's Inflation Reduction Act is not working. Yes, gas prices are down a little, but I went to the grocery store last Saturday and I saw everything that I normally buy up. So I was very concerned about the fact that we're paying more. We're the citizens, we the people in the Constitution. And when I know that I can't afford to live on what I'm on as far as my retirement, which is Social Security, and I don't get a COLA raise in that, I'm sorry. And as far as the city budget is concerned, I cannot see, I was against it all along, spoken before. I can't see spending $1 million for a pedestrian bridge across the creek on South Llano. Who's going to use it, and how are we going to get anything out of that? That plus the other things like the scoreboards and things and broadband. My internet carrier offers me broadband if I want to pay for it, and anybody in this town can get it if their internet carrier carries it. So I'm going to say I want us to see a reduction in the proposed rate of taxes. The local paper said residential
Give a minute.
property assessment went up 20%, commercial went up 26%. That's more than enough to cover a city budget right there in itself, not including any of the new development that's going on. And like somebody else spoke here, anybody that works for a living downtown can't afford to live here anyway, and I'm getting very close to that point myself. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jerry. Okay, the other people I have signed up on items not on the agenda. Did anybody sign up on the wrong page? I want to make sure you speak now on anything on the agenda. Okay, for those of you who may or not be accustomed to city council procedure, just so you know, public comment is designated by law to be a one-way conversation. The council is not allowed to respond back. So oftentimes I think if people are not accustomed to the city council, they may think, why don't y'all respond? Why don't you answer the questions? Why don't you say something back either in support or to explain? We're not allowed to, just so you know. But we do take the opportunity, just speaking for me, and I know my colleagues do this, we do take the opportunity to follow up if there's need for us to do, or we feel that it would be helpful if we got a better read on what was being said. All right, so we'll go to consent agenda. The following items can be acted upon as a single motion without discussion or action on any of the specific items, unless somebody on the council wants to pull it specifically, but we're looking at a council agenda to approve minutes for the September 2nd work session, September 6th special meeting, and the September 6th regular meeting. Any comments, council?
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Can we amend we need to do it with the amendments that Shelley sent us.
Oh, with the amendments that Shelley sent us.
I'm sorry. Yours was included about cease and desist.
Did you visit with her?
Yes.
Okay. So you're good with the motion amendment?
Yes.
Okay. Second?
Second.
All right, a motion and second to approve the consent agenda with the amendments noted. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 7 is public hearings. We have 2 public hearings tonight. One to consider and receive comments for or against the request by Kirk. Is it Iring? Kirk, are you here? Okay. With Smitty's, are you Kirk?
I'm Cody Clark. I'm in Kirk's place.
Okay, hold on. To receive with Smitty's, Texas, to consider a CUP per section 3.210 to allow a drive-through associated with a car wash for property located at 513 South Adams. This is a hearing only tonight, correct?
No, you will be taking action as well.
We will. Where? Other actions. Okay. Down in the agenda. All right. All right. I'll entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
I move we go out of regular session into public hearing.
Second.
Motion second to go out of regular into public hearing. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're in public hearing. Would you like to hear from them first, or how would you like to go?
Yes, sir. We typically allow the applicant
Okay,
to
applicant, please tell us who. Tell us your name, and you're standing in for Kirk.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
My name is Cody Carter, and I am the construction project manager for the construction division of Smitty's, Texas. We're here to help represent or answer any questions as far as our request for the conditional use permit. But a little further about the car wash, it's just a single tunnel, fully automated car wash that's close to about 5,000 square feet, including the tunnel and other equipment rooms and things of that. And as Mr. Garrett said, it is at 513 South Adams. Which corners the East Walsh and South Adams. And the site is, according to our survey, is approximately 8.90 acres. And and again, I'm here to help answer any questions or any concerns that you have in regards to the project.
Is there anyone else to speak to this item here tonight that wishes to be on the public hearing of this item? All right. We need to go out back into regular so we can hear back here.
I move we go out of public hearing into regular session.
Close, if you will.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
I'll second.
Okay, motion second to go back into regular. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, Garrett.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
So just add a little to what Mr. Carter said. Just to clarify, it's a 0.89 acre tract located at the corner of Walsh and South Adams. It also has frontage on East Live Oak, but no access will be taken from that area. It's just going to be used for landscaping. Site access will be taken via a one-way ingress drive off of South Adams. That will require TxDOT approval for the use of that, as well as a full access driveway off of East Walsh. After public notice to everyone within 200 feet of this property, we received two responses, one for and one against. Both of those are in your packet on page 113 and 114. And then P&Z held a public hearing at their September 7th meeting. We received no comments from the public at that meeting, and P&Z ultimately recommended approval of the conditional use permit as well as the site plan. So as proposed, the site development plan and conditional use permit relating to the drive-through use appears to meet all applicable development requirements. So P&Z and staff are recommending approval with the conditions noted on page 88 of your packet. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions, council, of either the applicant or Garrett?
I just had one question on pervious versus impervious ratio. What is it for this zoning? Yeah. I mean, that's one of the standards, right?
Yes, it meets those requirements. Yes, ma'am. I don't know the exact numbers for you.
Other questions?
I have one question. Since I am a neighbor, I didn't get a notice.
Within 200 feet?
For the bank?
I'd have to check.
I'm just
basically
curious.
Everyone within 200 feet. I can go back and check the listing, but it goes to whoever is on the tax rolls,
Well,
the owner of the property. So I'll double check that. So, Mayor, I would say before taking action, I believe you'll have to call item, is it 9A?
9A, yeah. Yeah. So I'm giving people time. You saw the conditions P&Z put on this approval. Are you asking whether you're in your business?
That the purple line is the 200-foot buffer, so you may be outside
Okay,
that.
so I'm out.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Makes sense.
All right. I'll call action item number 9A. Consider the approval of the CUP as requested and as presented, as explained. Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve request Z 2217 for a conditional use permit.
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? Yes, sir.
Does that motion include the conditions that were presented by council or by staff?
Yes, and include the conditions placed on the request by P&Z. Thank you.
The motion is amended to include those conditions. Second, you approve. All right. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Tony votes no. The other four commissioners vote, or council members vote aye. All right, back up to the public hearings. We're going to 7B, consider holding a public hearing to receive comments for or against the following request by Michael Lenahan with Land Strategies, Inc. to consider a CUP per section 3.205 to allow food sales as a permitted use for property located at 206 North Milam. Is the applicant, sorry.
I move we go out of regular session in public hearing.
Second.
Motion second to go into public hearing. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Are you Mr. Is it Lenahan? I said it correct? Good. Floor is yours.
Michael Lenahan. I'm here representing Fixing Fred LLC and the owners of 206 North Milam, to be known as Grand Central of Milam. This project did receive a CUP roughly 2 years ago for the internal program of the building. At that time, the program of the backyard had not been fully fleshed out, and in the time of the development has been further developed and now includes two 200 square foot permanent food kiosks for food sales and rotating vendors, as well as a small open air stage for small performances and potential movies. Part of this CUP request is has conditions on it in terms of the decibel hours and the hours of operation that are limited, that the ownership and the project are in favor of and in support of. One of the things is this owner is holds a very special place for this particular project and wants to be a good neighbor, so has done some extensive outreach to the neighborhood to make sure that any concerns have been addressed. And we do anticipate to put or are proposing that we have a series of walls, fences, and vegetation for screening and sound dampening. So that is the request that we're here to ask for, and I will be available for any questions.
Is there anyone else here to speak on this item?
I move that we go out of public hearing into regular session.
Second.
Motion second to go back into regular. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Garrett?
Thank you. So Mr. Linehan did an excellent job of explaining the situation, but back in 2020 CUP was approved for this property, but it was only related to the uses inside the building. So as Mr. Linehan mentioned, as they signed on tenants, there's been a need for some additional use of the backyard area. They see it as a kind of an amenity to the site. So staff has been working closely with them, realizing there's potential impacts to the surrounding neighborhood. I did include a map showing the surrounding uses on page 123 of the packet. As you'll notice, a large number of the lots are utilized as STR or commercial uses. There are a number of residences in the area. But as we've continued to work with the developer, they've proposed sound walls or walls, CMU walls, fencing and landscape buffers to try to minimize any impacts. As you'll see in some of the recommendations as well, we are proposing that the use of the backyard area comply with the City of Fredericksburg quiet hours for residential zones. So there would be no uses allowed between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. to try to address any of the concerns of the neighborhood. P&Z did have a public hearing on this item on September 7th. There was an adjacent property owner in attendance. He brought up a few concerns, again, with noise and lighting, but throughout the discussion, it sounded like the developer had addressed those concerns. We also received 2 letters in response, one in support and one in opposition. But ultimately, P&Z did recommend approval of the proposal. On page 118 of your packet, there's a pretty lengthy list of conditions. The first being that the original CUP conditions would still be in effect. Also mentioned the Fredericksburg quiet hours for residential zones. One thing I wanted to note about the buffering in the back is most of that area is FEMA floodplain. So anything that is proposed in there would require a flood study to be done to prove up no adverse impacts to adjacent properties. The developers indicated they're happy to do that, but they wanted to make sure they were able to use this area before they went into that study. We would also like to have fire marshal approval of the finalized plan to make sure the fire department has adequate access in the back. And then a building permit would be required, and we would require a floodplain development permit, that basically the result of that flood study. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Did you say there's a study for the floodplain?
So there's an existing one for the current building, but because they're proposing additional development in the floodplain, they would be required to do one. Again, they have indicated they didn't want to do that yet until they knew this use was approved. Yes, sir.
So if it's still in the floodplain.
So if they're unable to prove that they're not adversely impacting anyone, they wouldn't be able to do this. So that is a condition of the approval as proposed.
You mean for the floodplain study?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So it's possible it could kill the deal because of the issue?
Yes, sir. We actually have a meeting set up with the civil engineer tomorrow to discuss that.
The quiet hour is 10 to 7, but I noticed that their hours of operation include up to 11 on one day. Does that still apply?
So again, as currently presented in the existing CUP, that's just for the indoor uses. So they basically what we're saying is any outdoor uses or backyard programming would be limited to these 10 to 7 hours, or they couldn't operate during that time frame. And they're agreeable to that.
I noticed that the letters of the one letter of protest did not list a reason. Is that normal?
That is, as we're looking at the development process, I think that's one thing we should add is, what is your reason for objecting to the project? Just to provide a little more clarification.
But they didn't specify?
They did not specify. Same goes for letter of support, for that matter.
Yeah. Well, support is kind of obvious, but the protest seems like a book. And since the application says because down there. Yeah. So what's the difference in a residential and a homestead? Sorry, I don't know.
So homestead means that the property owner lives at the property. Residence could be a long-term rental.
I see. But both of them were residences.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And they were all duly notified.
Correct.
Okay. Well, the build out looks really nice. I'm just concerned about
we're happy to see
what's going to go on.
Done. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
I have no other questions. Anybody else?
I move that we approve
Let me
request.
call the item first. Let me call the item first, right? Thanks, Bobby. Okay. All right. We're going to go with item 9B, consider the approval of this CUP as presented. So you want to go ahead and call it and with the P&Z conditions.
I move to approve request Z 2218 CUP with conditions required by P&Z.
I'll second that motion.
Motion and second to approve this CUP with the conditions imposed by P&Z or requested by P&Z. Opposed? Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That one carries unanimously. All right, we ready to go to 9C? Consider the approval of an amendment to the construction manager at risk services agreed with J.K. Bernard Construction for Marketplace Redevelopment Commission project. Is this why former Mayor Tim Grinwug is here? Excellent. Are you going to carry with this one? No explanation. Oh, Andrea, there she is. I didn't see you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Tonight we're bringing you the amendment to the original contract that was brought back to City Council earlier this year. This project has been going on since 2018 when City Council originally gave the Market Square Redevelopment Commission permission to go ahead and proceed on this project. We've been working with J.K. Bernhard since April of this year to finalize the plans and try to come up with something that would work and a number that would work. So they came back with the final plans and they got bids and have come up with a maximum price of $1,786,405. Now this will be for just the first phase, and I'll go over that in just a minute here since most of y'all are new here on the council from when this was approved. There was a second phase of the project that would have been the actual annex building itself. We were going to try to do some renovations to it and a patio on Crockett Street that came in a little bit above what funds we had approved for this project or had raised for this project. So we decided to put that on hold and we're just going to focus on this second phase. If you see on the drawing, that's just a rendering of what it'll look like. This first phase is going to take the drive-through of the annex and that's going to go away. There's going to be a meeting room that'll fit about 95 to 100 people in there. There will also be restrooms, which this will be great for all the parents that are using the playground because instead of having to walk all the way across Market Square, they'll be able to use restrooms right there. In addition, there'll be some patio areas on on Adams Street, and then the driveway area is going to go away, and there will be green space out there. As you mentioned, Tim Crenwelge is here. He's the chairman of the Market Square Redevelopment Commission, and Stan Klein is here as well, and he was the approved architect on this project. Now, the funds that are for this project are still going to have to raise about another $120,000. We have funding in place for the building and the construction. We don't have the funding yet for the furniture and fixtures, but I think we can work with Market Square Redevelopment over the next year and hopefully get money to buy the picnic tables and the chairs and tables. And if we don't get it all, we may just hold off on some of the catering items we had wanted to get for this project. So I don't know if you have any questions at this time.
What's the number on the furniture?
About $100,000, and then another 20 to 25 for additional engineering and architecture fees. And that $100,000 includes IT equipment, tables and chairs for the meeting space, some ice, refrigerators, warmers, picnic tables outside, which I think we can get sponsors for the picnic tables. So we have about, once we give notice to proceed, they have, I think, 309 days to finish the project. So we'll have that time to work on fundraising for those parts.
Andrew, I want to make sure I understood that phase 2 is the 319,000.
No, phase 2 is the 1,786,405.
Okay, phase 3.
So I guess yes. In this project, we were considering the playground phase 1. Okay. So that's all done. So now we're basically have the last two phases. Phase 1 is 1,786,405, which we're approving tonight, and then the next phase 2 or 3, depending on how you look at it, is 319. But we're not going to do that now. There would have been some cost savings if we did it now, but we just don't have the funds. So.
Any other questions of Andrew? All right, I'll take a motion.
I move we approve the amendment to the construction manager at risk services agreement with J.K. Bernhard Construction for the Mark Lots Redevelopment Commission project at a maximum price of $1,786,405.
She seconded.
Emily second? Okay. Have a motion second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew. I'm going to go ahead and go through D&E if that's all right. Sure. Consider the approval of mini court lease agreement, adding additional square footage. Shelley talking to this?
I'll kick this off. Shelley is here to answer any questions that you might have. So this is an amendment to an existing lease to expand the lease space by 4,500 square feet to move the entire municipal court operation just across the street. Luckily, there is the space available just right there next door to them that we can incorporate into the space. You see the additional cost, $5,625 per month for a 5-year lease. As we've discussed throughout the budget process this year, we do have dollars plugged into the budget for renovation of this space so that it can be used to accommodate the municipal court operation. Staff recommends the approval of the lease amendment. I don't know if Shelley might want to add anything. I want to say a few words about your operation or anything specific about or if you have any questions for Shelley or I, we'd be happy to answer.
I don't have anything specific to add. We've been talking about it for a while, and I think I've talked individually with several of you. You know, some of the issues that we've had with space and the need to expand it out, and we're very fortunate to have found this space, particularly because we're already attached to it in some way. So that's just worked out wonderful, on top of the fact that it's the only space that's come available in the year. But if you have any questions or concerns, I can certainly address those.
It's a 5-year lease. Is that correct?
It would be, and I believe there's an option in the lease for an additional 5 years if necessary.
I have a question, but I think it's worth noting that we We have a lot of municipal court activity, and it's getting more and more. And we have inadequate space now, and the options that we thought we might have had earlier closed up.
Yes, that's correct. The space we have right now is roughly 2,000 square feet, which has 5 employees, storage, bathrooms, a small kitchenette. Clearly, 2,000 square feet isn't going to fit any number of people in it. We have been using this space. We come here on Tuesdays, our docket days. I understand that you all be using this space now on Tuesdays. We've talked with Clinton about how we can go about maybe shifting some things around. The first Tuesdays won't be a problem, but that third Tuesday is our heaviest docket. So we'll discuss that, figure that out.
I have a few comments on the lease. So the initial, and this is just proposed. It's a 5-year term with an option for up to 5-year renewal. That's just, you know, the landlord is okay with that, but I let him know that was subject to council's discretion and approval. So that's what's proposed on the table right now is 5 years with an option for up to 5 more years. On Thursday or Friday of last week, the landlord communicated to me that he was concerned that with a lease of that length, he wanted more CPI adjustment to be included in the lease. So there's a reference to CPI adjustments in there now, but it's been rewritten to accommodate for annual CPI adjustments to reflect changes in the CPI for the previous 12 months. So there's potential for CPI rent escalation throughout the term up to the full 10 years if it goes that long. So I just wanted to note that since that's not in the copy that you have in the pack. But to answer your question, it's 5 years with up to 5 additional years.
But that's in the lease now. The CPI adjustment.
Correct. It's in. So I in those conversations, I quickly amended the lease to include that. Sent it to the landlord. He's okay with it. So
okay.
We just didn't get it in the packet because it was after the packet was produced.
So approval of this is approval of that.
Right. Yeah. I just want to make sure that's understood by the council.
All right.
You know, are there any other changes from what their original lease was beyond dollar amount and square footage? Is there any differences?
This is essentially exactly the same as the existing lease, with the addition of more space and additional rent. There's the CPI escalation, and then there's one other in the maintenance responsibilities for the tenant for the city. He wanted to add, in addition to the items that are already in the lease, he wanted to add items that are added by the tenant. So if the city adds something to the space, where we would be responsible for maintaining that as well. Those are the only changes.
Make motion that we approve the, I guess the additional square footage in the lease agreement.
Second.
Motion second to approve this proposed lease, 4,500 square feet, located at 103 Industrial Loop across the street at $67,500 a year. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Judge.
All right, thank you.
And one other item before we get to tax discussion. Software. Let me get to it so I can say it. Consider the approval of a 3-year contract for OpenGov budgeting software for budgeting and transparency purposes. Krista, tell us about it.
Hi, good evening, Mayor, Council, City staff. So tonight, I'm going to talk a little bit about OpenGov. We've just gone through this budget process, so you're all very familiar with how it works and how it's very tedious right now. We do a lot of our schedules on Excel and Word documents, and then combining that all into a budget document. It takes a lot of time, not just with finance, but the other departments as well. Just have a short presentation. So one thing that we were considering different software companies, we wanted to make sure that we had local representatives. We wanted to make sure that it was a cloud-based software. We wanted to make sure that they, obviously check references, make sure they have, customers in Texas, which they do. And we looked at 3 companies, and we decided to go with OpenGov, primarily because they are cloud-based. They do have Texas representatives, and also they're integrated with our current software, Springbrook. So we thought it was important to maximize our investment with Springbrook and get away from the Excel and Word. It's time consuming for staff, and also there's a lot of room for human error. So again, we'd be going digital. We would be building the city's fiscal resilience. We would increase productivity. We would increase all of our experience, but also the transparency piece on our website would create more transparency for our citizens. So the piece that you'll see in our contract, if you go back one slide, please, Eric, is the budgeting and planning piece. So that will cover the operating budget, the capital planning, workforce planning, and the online budget book. The online budget book is going to be our #1 priority because we are so far into the budget process. We want to go ahead and start creating our chart of accounts and putting that data into OpenGov, and that way we will be able to have, we can have a PDF like we always have in the past, but then we'll be able to drill down and have that digital online book, which would be much better than what we currently have. Next slide. So basically So basically, the budgeting and planning piece, there's just this slide just kind of goes into some of the details with the budget, trend analysis, budget versus actual. The transparencies, we'll be able to have engagement surveys. We'll be able to track capital projects via maps that you'll be able to drill down and see the status of the projects, cost, where we are compared to budget. Next slide. This is just a slide that OpenGov provided, just basically showing that they have over 500 years of combined government experience. This OpenGov created this software for governments and only for governments to use. So obviously we're going to be able to save a lot of time not using those Excel spreadsheets and Word documents. So we'll be obviously have a time saving. We get a lot of information requests. So this transparency piece of this project will save at least 20 to 30% of time that we're spending on that. And then the finance staff will be freed up to work on other projects like, strategic initiatives and, having more time to analyze the data. OpenGov did let us know that they'll be frequently doing enhancements to the software, and that is all included in our pricing. So whenever there's any kind of upgrade, it's already built into our price. This slide basically is for security and reliability. Eric might know more about this if he wants to add anything, but just basically knowing that our information is going to be secure. And real quick, I'd like to, if we can connect, this is going on to McKinney, Texas, their website, to where you can kind of see what it's going to look like once we're up and running. We won't get to this probably in the first 3 or 4 months, but it'd be down the road. But we want to be able to actually, I don't know if you can see that, but they have all the topics along the left there, and you can just look at the budget. You can look at the expenses and the revenue. You can drill down and see, what your revenue is made of and what your expenses, as far as you want to go down and look at the details. And there's also an online checkbook. And there's the capital improvement section. And anybody can get on this, if you just want to look on your, when you have more time, you can go right onto McKinney's site and click on the interactive tool. and that's how ours will be set up as well. And there's so much information that will be available to everyone. So the city, where the staff is recommending that we go ahead and get this contract started. If we can get it signed, it is already included in the budget under software cost. And we're recommending a 3-year contract. That way we're locked into that cost for 3 years. They can increase the cost after year 3. They said about 3 to 5%.
What's the number in the budget this year?
It's about 64,000.
64.
Krista, when you say open to everyone, you mean everyone, like
everyone.
Everyone can see exactly what's going on in the finances of the city.
Yes, ma'am.
Wonderful.
What did we have before this program?
Before this, basically we were just creating packets of information and scanning that into our website. And so it's not very user friendly. And it takes a long time to find information that you're looking for.
Krista, can you talk about how this will change for like department heads as they're preparing budgets? Like, what is that going to look like?
Well, what I've been able to see so far is in the beginning of our budget process, you know, we currently set up meetings with all the department heads and go line by line through their budget. Now they'll all have access to go in and put their narratives in, put their estimates for the current year and their new budget numbers, and then you can actually set up meetings through the software and have follow-up information when there's questions. So it's going to save time across the board. And then the reporting, we usually do like monthly and quarterly reporting for your council reports. That will all be digital as well, and you can get real-time information whenever it's convenient for you.
I guess the big question always is it going to save us from having to hire additional people?
Well, it's hard to say it's hard to say with the growth that the city has been going through and how that will continue. But we're hoping that it will slow down having to add more staff down the road.
Additionally, we'll be able to plug in a lot of history, say a 10-year history going back. So if we want to look at trend lines, whether it's sales tax, property tax, if you want to look at a particular line item in the budget and see how that has gone up and down over the past decade, you can do that. As Krista mentioned, this is very open and transparent. Council will be able to get in, see the work that we've done, what is being proposed. You'll be able to pull levers to make adjustments to see how changes in property tax or sales tax projections or changes in rates affect projects, programs, the entire budget. When we talk about 1,000 spreadsheets, I think I mentioned to the council at some point, I literally mean 1,000 spreadsheets that are linked together, a lot of them that we're trying to manage to crunch out all of the numbers with respect to the budget. This makes that much more simplistic. It works together with our financial software. It prevents errors, generating reports, visual reports that are very understandable, very easy to do that. You can just take a look, whatever reports you want to generate. There's another piece of information that I thought was very interesting, capability of the software for the property taxes that you pay. You can plug that number into the customer portal, and it will show you where every penny of your taxes goes. Police, fire, EMS, streets, and so forth, based on the budget where every dollar goes. So there's no question about what your tax dollars are being spent. So again, very visual, a lot of really good information for the council, for staff, for the public.
You ready to move this item?
I move we approve the 3-year contract with OpenGov budgeting software.
I'll second it.
Motion second to approve this contract. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. Any opposed? Motion is approved. Thank you, Krista.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to go quickly to the resolution that won't take long about the bullet-resistant shield grant. Officer Romer, are you right? Ramer?
We have Mick McMickle with us tonight, filling in for Lieutenant Raymer.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The bullet-resistant shield grant program is Governor Greg Abbott. He allotted $50 million for bullet-resistant shields, and we're proposing to get 6 of those shields. There's no matching funds for the city. Everything is through the state, so that we have to put no money in aside from coming from the city or the department. We have some shields already on patrol, but we don't have shields for downtown patrol or our school resource officers. The grant itself is focused on those school officers because of recent events in the schools, and that's why the $50 million was initially put on for the body officers of the governor. So with this, our total that we did for the 6 shields would be $17,726.85. Again, there's no matching funds from the city. That's a grant that we'll get. We'll pay for the grant for those. Now, they do require that the shields, whoever they are assigned to, that person have an alert training either 24 months prior to the grant or 24 months after we receive the grant funds. Although we have a lot of officers that are alert, have taken those alert classes, we don't have any that's within the past 24 months that have taken them. It's all been prior to that or further back than that. However, all alert training is free. So all we do is pay for the cost to get the individual to the class. We do have an alert certified instructor, also Ayala, at the schools. If he put on a course, that would be taken care of with no cost at all to the city or for us traveling to those places for the alert training. And I think that is all I have for you. If you have any questions or comments.
You have them already, some already, right?
We have some on patrol already. Each patrol shift that's out has 2 on each shift. So we have 2 in all of the patrol shifts, with the exception of downtown patrol and our SROs, our school resource officers. They don't have any. So we're getting the 3 for the 3 school resource officers. Then we're going to put 2 for downtown patrol. We also have the 6th shield is going to be AR-15 bullet resistant shield. It's a little heavier shield that we're proposing to get. We're going to station that downtown to a central location that we can deploy that to wherever we need it to in a timely manner.
Move we the approval of the resolution 2022-19R, a bullet resistant shield grant program.
Second. Motion second to approve this resolution to pursue this bullet-resistant shield grant program. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
What kind of training do you have to do or certification to wear a bulletproof vest?
Go to the police academy.
I mean, they have to be certified to wear them?
These are actual shields. So what we do is we do have annual training in our department. We do, but it's not alert training. So alert training is they do all of the school active shooter training, mass casualty type thing. They specialize in that. They're stationed at Texas State University. So the FBI has recognized them as the premier training for the nation. And so they do particular training for using the shield, use of the shield. We have training ourselves in our department where we use the shield, but it's not the alert training that we do.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll go now to item number 8A, to consider the approval of ordinance 2022-30, adopting the city budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2022 and ending September 30, 2023, making appropriations for each department and account. This is the first of 2 readings, of which we can waive the second. Where do we go, Mr. Bailey?
Mayor, if you don't mind, I'd like to open the item by making just a couple of comments to the council. First of all, I wanted to thank the finance department and the council for all of the time and hard work that was poured into this. This is day 109 that we've been engaged in the budget development process. So we started with the presentation of the capital improvement plan, and here we are today with a final proposed budget. So we've had a lot of budget workshops with the council. In fact, we had an extra budget workshop meeting on the 6th. I think they've all been very productive. Also wanted to thank the public for all of your comments along the way. All of that helps us make the final decision here. So the current budget as proposed is based on the current tax rate, the 2022 tax rate of 0.195823. This is lower than where we started. If you'll recall, we started at the voter approval rate, 0.22 something, which is the highest rate that we could go without voter approval. It's typically what we do just about every year. You can always go down from that. The budget that we presented, we knew we would have cuts out of that. So in the end, we have cut roughly $775,000 out of the budget as originally proposed with the voter approval rate to get to this rate. You're familiar with a lot of the cuts. At one of the earlier workshops, when we were at the voter approval rate, afterwards the council wanted to cut about $300,000 out of the budget. We adjusted the budget to make those cuts. We ended up cutting about $475,000 more. These are just rough numbers to get down to this current rate. Just a reminder to the council, some of the items that we reduced the budget by on the capital equipment side. We had 2 pieces of equipment in the street department budget and 2 in the parks department budget that we proposed to lease purchase at $270,000 a year for 2 years. Instead of that lease purchase, we are purchasing that outright, so it's not a recurring cost. We have also reduced the $100,000 sidewalk program by $50,000. And originally we had talked about utilizing hot funds to cover the cost of employees doing maintenance work on market plots at a cost of $145,000 for a total of $465,000 reduction. Now, what we have plugged into the budget, and I might ask Laura to provide just a little bit more information on this in terms of the parks department employees' salaries that are being covered by HOT. That's $200,000 now plugged into the budget. So the savings is just a little bit more than that $465,000. Also wanted to mention that we have added into the budget, also covered by HOT funding, the $200,000 market plots paver project. So that will complete the entire paver project. We did phase 1 of that project earlier this year. I'm replacing the clay pavers with the same color, same size, concrete paver, much longer useful life. Probably those pavers will probably outlive all of us sitting in the room here. So with that, Laura, I'll turn it over to you or council if you have any specific questions for me. I'll try to answer those now.
I guess what I was looking for, what's the bottom, if you go with the proposed tax rate, what's it going to be for households? And I know you can base it on $100,000. What is that rate, or what's that cost going to be?
I've got it right here, Tony. If Laura doesn't. So we have been basing all of our numbers on an average home price of $410,000 in town.
And that's a good one to compare it with.
If you want to, I think it might make more sense in this case to break it down for $100,000, so you can do the math. So if we're looking at a $100,000 house, the rate that's being proposed would increase your taxes for the year by $30.56 for every $100,000.
Anybody have $100,000 house?
So let's jump right to the average home price, which we've indicated is just under $411,000. That's an additional $125.60 per year on your tax bill. And again, we did this every year. A lot of people have the misconception that the city controls the entire tax bill. The city's portion of the overall tax bill is only 12 to 15% of the overall taxes that include FISD and county taxes.
Well, yeah, everybody knows the school taxes majority.
Yes, sir. That's correct. And also the water district has a very small portion.
Council, as we discussed this quite thoroughly the other day, and we were looking for the number to get down to last year's tax rate, because that was my target of that day. Have you had any further thoughts since then you want to share with council, or any items of discussion you'd like to bring up with regard to new thoughts about this rate or less, or addressing any of the comments that have been made tonight? Anything specifically I'd like to open up for council response?
Part of the thing, if you put it off this year, you're going to have to do it next year or the following year. So you can, how long are you going to ride on it? It's not going to get any better.
I think looking at past years, I think our benefit of having lower taxes has been realized, but if we continue, it's going to be to the detriment of our infrastructure and to the safety of our town. I'm really proud of the things that we prioritized in the budget, looking at new police officers, capital improvement projects. I think we've been deferring maintenance, delaying projects, understaffing departments, and underpaying employees for a while. So I'm proud of the work that we've done the last 109 days.
109 days.
I agree with Emily's comments. If we lower the tax rate, there has been some legislation passed in the last few years that restrict the amount of taxes we can raise. So if we go to the no new rate, we'll only be allowed, if we need to raise taxes again, only be able to go up 3.5%. Whereas, is that right? It's 3.5%. So to maintain our infrastructure and the services that we provide to the community, it's important that we maintain a certain tax rate, or else it will start to have an effect on our infrastructure, as Emily said. So I feel good about what we've done, and I'm glad we got back to the same tax rate that we had this year. So I'm in favor of it.
Which, to be clear, we're aware that last year's tax rate brings in more revenue and costs taxpayers more.
That's correct.
Because the appraisals are higher. Nobody is fooled by the fact that it's the same number. Nobody's trying to pull anything. It's 195, but the no new rate, which means that this year's 19 was last year's 16 cents. We understand that. I'll just say that, Christine, I appreciate very much what you had to say. It is a struggle. It's a struggle for everybody. And I hate the thought of people having to struggle so much, not only with life in general and the wage scales here, but the increasing tax rates, which in my view are just inevitable. Yes, there are always things we can find in the budget. We don't need that, we don't need that, we don't need that. But what you have to trust me in saying, I was going to say the council, I just said with me, is there is a sense in which everything affects everything else. So you start cutting this and it affects other things that impact the cost later. I know that's a general, maybe sounds political, blah, blah, but it really is a fact that if you start making a decision to put off the purchase of a truck, for example, and by the way, These people are working with trucks that are 10, 15, 20 years old. Some of these pieces of equipment that we rely on for the services. I'm proud of Fredericksburg and the services that it provides. I realize that every taxing entity can find a here, a there to cut to get down to no new rate or less than no new rate, et cetera. But I'm convinced that it won't serve us well. It might serve us well this year, but it won't serve us in the long term. The argument about not being able to adjust taxes appropriately after 1 year where we decide, well, we're going to take everything into account and keep the tax rate below NNR, then the legislature, used to be 8%, by the way, right, Tim? Used to be 8% that we could raise the taxes in 1 year, which nobody wants to raise taxes. Well, I don't think we do, not locally. But we would have to take a hard leap, and it would just be harder medicine next time. I'm proud of our employees. When people start talking about the people in town who have to pay more for gas, more for this, more for that, our employees are those people. They're the ones that have to face the same thing with healthcare, with taxes, with gas, with food, with everything else. So because it's a complex system in my mind, then I just struggle to find what is the lowest we can go and still maintain the level of service to our capital projects. We don't want to be, getting close to what Jackson, Mississippi deals with, and we're not. But that's a good lesson. They didn't deal with their water infrastructure for years. They may have had people saying don't raise the taxes. I don't know. But Fredericksburg doesn't want to be that. We've got to take care of everything we've got going. Yes, we're growing. The systems are becoming more sophisticated. Software is now available for us to be more productive and more on edge with what services we provide. I like the software that any of you can go and look and see how money is spent so that the next budget discussion you can see how your money went. And we're all on board with that. We all want this to work for everybody. I'm not unaware and I'm not immune and I'm not, what's the word? I'm not ignoring the comments that were made about keep taxes low. Please don't do it this year. We know that we're facing some headwinds economically. Nobody knows to what degree. We expect that Fredericksburg will survive. It has before, but we don't know. We don't know if tourism will keep up, sales tax will keep up, and so forth. But we do have some measures to take care of things on the go. We always have a mid-year budget adjustment if we have to. And so I feel that after, I don't know how many hours we spent doing this. And thank God for staff who does this work and gives us all of this data once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. And then, well, what was that? What did I say that time? And I'm really, really grateful for that. But I just think after all is said and done, we have hammered this down to not a beyond reasonable, a good rate. Last year's tax rate, that may not be the best way to refer to it, as I said, because it was 16 cents last year. But it is an approach to keeping things as normal as we can, given all of the headwinds that we're facing and the uncertainties. I hope that makes some sense to you. My main message is I do hear you. I do listen. We do listen. We do hear. We're all taxpayers. We do care about our community. Nobody wants to go bankrupt. Nobody wants people to leave because they can't afford their houses. They can't work here and so forth. It's just this is a task we have to do. And I'm happy where we are with this rate.
Let me just clear. Our raises was 5%, not 7%, right?
7% cost. Yes, sir.
Oh, it is 7.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Anyone else? All right, we've heard from the public. We've heard from you. If you're going to make a motion, be sure you put the right words.
Daniel, do we ordinance, we have to approve 8A first and then 8B, 1, 2, 3, and 4?
That's correct. 8A, the budget will be adopted first. There's no special language for that motion, but it does need to be a record vote. After that, you'll have a vote if you need to ratify a property tax increase that was reflected in your budget. That's item 8B1. And then you would work through the tax rate after that.
I move to approve ordinance 2022-30, adopting the city budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2022, ending September 30th, 2023, making appropriations for each department and account, and waive the second reading.
A second.
All right, motion to approve the budget and waive second reading. Motion second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that was a unanimous vote.
Mayor, you have to do a record vote on that item.
Have to have a roll call?
Yes, sir.
On the motion, Ms. Kirchner?
Aye.
Mr. Watson?
Aye.
I vote aye. Mr. Klein?
Aye.
Ms. Joseph?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. City Attorney, for keeping me in line. I want to do it right. All right, the tax rate issue. Ordinance, that's a separate item of discussion. Are we?
Item 8B1 or 8BI is when the council adopts a budget that has a property tax increase, you have to take a separate vote to ratify the property tax increase that was reflected in that budget. So that's that first item. And so that would need to be a motion similar to what I just stated or what's stated there in that item.
183. I mean, 184.
Yeah.
The wording on 184. All right, somebody want to do that?
I move that the property tax
Oh,
rate.
no, I'm sorry. That's incorrect.
I'm sorry. Oh, like this.
Right. So you have to work through that item 8B. So
Okay.
your first item is 8B1
Okay.
or 8BI. It's a vote just to ratify the tax increase that was included or as part of the budget that you just adopted.
Okay.
This is a statutory requirement. It's kind of a strange thing. It just anytime the council adopts a budget that includes a property tax increase, you have to have a separate second vote to ratify the property tax increase reflected in the budget. So you need a motion basically that states that.
That's the wording
A
on
motion to
184.
ratify. The motion is, I don't know if it's it's on your agenda essentially in item 8B1. You need a motion to ratify the property tax increase as reflected in your 2020 budget.
I move that we ratify the property tax increase not to exceed the proposed rate of 0.195823 as reflected in the 2023 budget for the City of Fredericksburg General Fund and Interest and Sinking.
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
You have to have.
Oh, is this a roll call?
No.
Okay. All right, next.
Now you have two components of your tax rate, so you have to approve those individually, which is items 2 and 3 under item B. And then item 4 is the one that has the special wording that's in your packet on page 184.
I move we approve the 2022 maintenance and operation rate not to exceed the proposed rate of 0.169967 for the City of Fredericksburg.
Second.
Motion to approve the M&O rate not to exceed 169,967. Any further discussion? All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Is that roll call? What else is roll call?
Item number 4.
Okay. So we're down to 3, the debt service rate.
You have to consider the appropriate.
Clinton, are those rates in the agenda? Are those reflective of what's being adopted?
Those already specified in contract?
Yes, because I don't know if we listed the max, the proposed rate, and if
Let's
not,
do it
something
anyway.
underneath that. I just want to make sure they're adopting.
We can do it.
That was the first one.
Sorry.
We did that first.
You're essentially setting whatever tax rate you want to set, but you have to break it down for each of your portions.
So if we do the M&O and then the debt service and then the ordinance, we got it right.
Correct. I just want to make sure that I don't have the calculations in front of me, so I just want to make sure the council is making motions.
Okay, so we approve the property rate not to exceed 195. Then we had to approve the 2 that makes that 195 up, right?
Right.
Have we done all that?
If 0.195 is what you're adopting, then.
We haven't done the debt service.
Right.
We haven't done the
So
debt service.
I move we approve the 2022 debt service rate not to exceed the proposed rate of 0.025856 for the city of Fredericksburg.
Second.
Motion is second to approve the debt service rate not to exceed 0.258656. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. This one's roll call. 4.
Yes, it needs to be a roll call or record vote, and this also needs to have the specific motion made that was set forth in your agenda on page, in your packet on page 184.
Okay, so that language, 184.
Use the language in the agenda. Is that different than the language on page 184?
Yes. That's finally where we are, 184.
Right, I would recommend a motion that states I'm approving the ordinance number, which is the tax rate ordinance, and then make the statement as I move the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of the rate, et cetera, on page 184.
I move to approve ordinance 2022-31, setting the tax levy for taxable year 2022 not to exceed. I say what you said. Let me rephrase. I move to approve ordinance 2022-31. To approve the property tax rate to be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of 0.1958823, which is effectively an 18.5% increase in the tax rate.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second on that ordinance number. Property tax rate be increased by the adoption of tax rate of 0.19583, effectively an 18.5% increase in the tax rate. Any further discussion?
Are we waiving the second reading on this?
Oh, and waive the second reading. Thank you.
Second.
Motion and second to waive the second reading on that. All in favor of the motion say aye. Was this roll call?
Yes.
Ms. Kirchner?
Aye.
Mr. Watson?
Aye.
I vote aye. Mr. Klein?
Aye.
Aye.
Ms. Joseph? Thank you. Thanks, Daniel. It's all got to be by procedure, right? To fulfill the regulation. Yeah, that's wearying this time of night. All right. Public comments on items not listed on the agenda. Ruben Aguilar.
So a lady spoke here on the 6th, 2 weeks ago. Her name was Carol Hammerson. She was very brave. She told us about how the government was trying to destroy the life of her friend, the Green Beret, and spied on her and him. So she inspired this speech. From the Institute for Justice, using a secret point system, the Pasco County Sheriff's Office selects individuals to target and harass in an attempt to force them out of the county, kind of like what's happening to me. Please research the story of Mary Lou Herster, victims of organized crime in Fredericksburg, Texas. The city and law enforcement tried to destroy her life and chase her away, placing spy equipment in her house. They tried to turn the whole town against her, the same thing that's being done against me. Please research the Institute for Justice, Sylvia Gonzalez from Castle Hills of San Antonio, Texas. She got tired of the corruption at City Hall, so she ran for election and won. She began confronting the corruption at City Hall, so the city council and law enforcement turned on her and persecuted her, even fixing it to putting her in jail. Angeli Gomez is a young mother who, during the Uvalde school shooting, ran in and saved 2 of her boys and ran back to save more kids, but the cops handcuffed her. She did a story with the station WFAA out of Dallas, where she is telling people she and her mother are now being harassed, threatened, and persecuted by the city and law enforcement for speaking out. When the tragedy in Uvalde happened, before any information came out, the city officials made it known that no matter what happened, the city officials wanted a favorable view of the police. In other words, they didn't care what happened, who got killed. They just wanted the police to look good, and that is idolatry. That's idolatry. No one is worthy of worship except God and His Son. Carol Hammerson is right. The FBI is not our friend. Since 2015, they have been trying to destroy my life, putting cameras inside my home without legitimacy, destroying my finances, job opportunities, spying on my phones and manipulating them, assassinating my character and vilifying me everywhere I go, spending millions of dollars already since 2015. Can you imagine how much crime they would solve if they would go after criminals instead of patriots? There was also a story on an old website called Topics. A detective here in Fredericksburg and his wife are landlords. And on this website, many of his own tenants were warning people not to rent from him because spy equipment was being placed in their houses. So I told Terry Weed, his supervisor, about it, but it was just swept under the rug. The entire system is corrupt. They don't even go after criminals anymore, but citizens. We are all being spied on, especially if you've ever gotten up here to speak. You're being spied on. You better wake up. We need to take control of government, the people. We cannot afford this. Our country's being destroyed. We cannot afford putting up with corruption or misconduct in anywhere, by anyone who does it. And please, please remember, only God is worthy of worship. Only God and His Son, and nobody else.
Edward, is it Rhodey? Mr. Rhodey? Edward Rhodey.
Edward Brody, I don't agree with moving city council during the day. It's basically City of Fredericksburg's community. It just ain't the council. And y'all making it where the community cannot attend city council because everybody's so short of employees. They're not going to let their employees off. What is the city of Fredericksburg going to do? Are they going to let all their employees off if they want to attend city council? On there? I was upset with the article I read in the papers last week. Mr. Hoover and Mr. Bailey had. They come to Fredericksburg, but then they want to change Fredericksburg. We want to change it like San Angelo. It worked so good. Well, why did Mr. Bailey come here if it was so great in San Angelo? For another example, like Mr. Hoover's involved in the Fredericksburg Theater Company. Why don't you move it to 8:30 Monday morning and see how much attendance you have there? People can't make it. So I don't think it's right changing it where the community cannot attend city council. I think the commissioner's court ought to be in the evening also on there. And look how many people attend commissioner's court because they can't do it. People just can't get off all these times. Thank you.
Bill Snyder.
I'm Bill Snyder. I'm a resident of Fredericksburg. Thank you, Council, and thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to speak. One thing that last May's city election showed us was residents were not happy and they wanted a change. They came out in large numbers and voted overwhelmingly for neighborhoods and residents' quality of life. The new rules, codes, and regulations went into effect on April 1st, 2022. Residents were asked to give the city 6 months to implement the new changes. That 6-month period is up at the end of September, which brings me to my point. To be able to enforce the new changes, code enforcement must be successful. The question becomes, do we want code enforcement or do we want code enforced? The reason I mentioned their success is every weekend residents can show you STRs that are operating without permits, STRs that are overbooking, unshielded outdoor lights, parking issues, watering violations, and no observance of quiet hours, etc., etc. All of these issues are covered in the new city rules that went into effect on April 1st. With the same issues facing residents every weekend, residents can easily conclude that we have a system that is not working. These problems cannot be solved by calling the police. As good as our officers are, they can only solve the problem for one night. Residents want a system developed by leadership that solves the problems for weekends in the future. Also, residents do not want to call the police, and many simply won't. They simply do not want to get involved in a problem they did not create. Residents' quality of life in our residential neighborhoods need code enforcement to be successful and a system developed to assure their success. I would say that there has been a positive change in our city with our new leadership. With that said, residents are waiting and need more help in our residential neighborhoods and hope there will be a concerted effort to focus on what residents voted for in the very near future. Thank you.
Mary Lee Marshall.
I'm Mary Lee Marshall. I live in Fredericksburg. I am very grateful for the Constitution that protects my right to free speech. I am sure you know that we are very disappointed in your decision to keep the ARPA money. One of the things I find most disturbing is the direction you turn for advice. You asked the TML, the people who lied to us in the first place when they said it wasn't even a contract. Then you thought someone who worked in DC for some politician would have good advice. Why would somebody who doesn't trust the federal government ask for advice from a bureaucrat in DC? And then you said last week you didn't think the feds would come after us for not complying with executive orders because we are such a small city. I am confused. Are you so dishonest that you have already decided not to follow executive orders because you think they won't come after us? You ran for office because you thought you could do a better job. So is this your idea of a better job? You're either lying to us or you plan on lying to the feds, and you are on record as saying that. Thank you.
Jeanette Hormuth. George Studer.
George Studer from 1015 Avenue D here in town. I got a different subject. Tomorrow, there's going to be an event on the market plots called Celebration of Books. And my point to you today is that I would like you to consider adding more rigor to the event approval process so that events like this don't just comply with the laws and ordinances by the letter, but to assess the event for potential harm to persons, especially minors. And that event tomorrow is being conducted by groups that have shown to promote the very books that many are trying to remove from schools. They have sexual material in them that is far from age appropriate. And there we'll be out there tomorrow to go see how many of those are there. But I think you look to the Texas Penal Code and it addresses the material that would be harmful to minors. It includes specific definitions for pornography and obscene material and gives some exceptions for education. But you couldn't call the police tomorrow and say, hey, I found this book that looks obscene and expect anything to happen. So it's kind of futile, but I think harmful to minors and impact to children could be assessed as part of the event approval process. You have your own discretion to approve other events. I mean, if you had some kind of loudmouth band that was proposing to be at the market plots, and they were known for their cussing and their lewd behavior or whatever, you might say, hey, no thanks. You don't have to look at everything by whether it complies to the law or not. So I believe that the city has the right and the responsibility to use common sense and judgment. And I'm sure the event process, is pretty thorough. I looked at the material and I talked. I started with Bobby and then talked to Andrea about it. And it's not about whether it's legal; it's about whether it's right. And so I expect the city to use common sense in future events. So that's my story. Thank you.
City manager's report.
Sorry, Mayor, Council, I have 3 items on my update this evening. The first is the change in future council meetings. I wanted to go over the changes, make the public aware of the 6 changes that the council voted on during a workshop earlier this month. The first change that was made, the council voted to eliminate public comment on items not on the agenda. We combined public hearing with our ordinance and resolutions section of the agenda and included public comments on each item when that item is being discussed. We've moved council comments to follow employee recognitions. The council eliminated the second reading requirement for ordinances, although it is still an option. We have moved the meeting day and time to Tuesday at 9 a.m. at the LEC on the first and third Tuesday of each month, effective 10/4, October 4th. The structure of the meetings is also changing, where we will alternate between a regular business meeting such as this, where the council takes action on items, much like we did tonight. And then we will have a special meeting work session where we will have 2 or 3 items on the agenda for discussion only by the council. We're developing a list of those topics. This will be a way for the council to have a roundtable discussion, set priorities in the community. We'll also talk about some of the town hall meetings that will begin to have. A lot of the topics that come out of those meetings will also be discussion topics during those meetings. So I invite the public to come to the first meeting in October. We'll be talking about the structure of the work session meetings and what list of topics the council may consider for discussion. That, Mayor, I don't know if you wanted to add anything or other council members wanted to add anything to that particular item. Okay, town hall meetings. This is something that we've been talking about doing since May. And the idea here is to get out in the public in your neighborhoods with your neighbors and discuss your neighborhood issues. We have divided the city up into roughly 20 equal areas based on population. And our idea is to try to get out either once or twice a month and meet in a host driveway. For instance, the Hammersons have agreed to be a host in their particular neighborhood. So we're going to send out invitations for the location, time, date, and bring your lawn chair. We will open up. It'll be the mayor and I, another council member, probably the police chief. We may have the development services director with us. If we know of issues in that particular neighborhood, we'll bring the appropriate staff person along. But this is our opportunity. If you've ever been to coffee with the city manager, it'll be similar to that, yet just a little bit different. We'll talk about some of the priority issues that the city and the city council are dealing with. But we will spend most of our time listening to the citizens that show up to the meeting. Your concerns, your comments, what we're doing right, what you would like to see in the community, and so forth. I think this is a really good timing for this effort as we're about to launch into our comprehensive planning process and development services. The document that is how the city of Fredericksburg will grow and manage a lot of the growth that we're seeing in the future. So I expect these meetings will begin happening toward the middle to the end of next month. Again, we haven't decided exactly how many we're going to try to do each month. We wanted to let it cool off a little bit, but we have a pretty narrow window when it comes to daylight hours. So again, an opportunity to get out in your neighborhood with your neighbors and get a better understanding of your issues. Anything to add on that? My last update is a fairly lengthy update. It's a request by the council to give an update on our 2022 current budget accomplishments. I haven't included everything here, but certainly the major projects and programs and just the notable additions to the budget this year. First of all, the 2022, the current adopted budget is just under $71 million. The organization consists of about 180 employees. Let me start with the police department. Included in the police department budget, we had architectural services for the conceptual design of a new police station and municipal court. We talked about municipal court lease space today. The idea would be at some point in the future, next year, a couple of years from now, the council might decide to pursue a bond election for a new police station municipal court. We added 7 new police vehicles. We have it on a rotation schedule. We put a lot of miles on those vehicles. We added a third new school resource officer and a new evidence technician position. And fire EMS, on the equipment side, we added a new pumper tender truck. We get our money's worth out of those. When we talk about Big Sky Fire and the response, those trucks are needed to haul water back and forth. We also replaced an ambulance. Again, we put a lot of miles on these vehicles. In addition to that, we added 6 new fire EMS employees. Jumping to the Parks Department, you may have noticed some construction if you attended the last council meeting on a gate at the RV park. Again, security of the park and the RV residents. That project is just about complete. We added a new restroom at LBJ Park. We repaired some much needed limestone trip hazard at Market Plots. Made repairs to the Girl Scout cabin, Hotch House window replacements completed. Pioneer Pavilion heater replacement. If you've ever been out there in the wintertime, much like the summer, very hot, very difficult to, or cold, very difficult to hold events. We resurfaced tennis courts, number 1 and number 2. We have the resurfacing added back into budget this year to continue that effort. Hotch House window replacement, I mentioned that. Market Plots paver replacement, I mentioned that earlier. We replaced about half the pavers, the clay pavers, with concrete. Park pool plaster replacement, and then also town pool plaster replacement. Both of those projects had to be done as a result of the winter storm. Then lighting at the Old Fair Park skate park, enhancements to the lighting. On the public works side, in the water department, replaced approximately 1,500 feet of 2-inch water mains. This is an initiative that we have to tighten up our water distribution system. Our water distribution system, in terms of leaks in the system, is very tight. We invest a lot in the system. We have one of the lowest water loss rates in the state of Texas. When I came on board, we had about 13%. We got down to under 2%. That saves enough water to accommodate about 1,000 additional people moving to Fredericksburg, or 10 years worth of growth. Substantial completion of Canal pump station. These are the water bond projects, the roughly $20.5 million in projects that include a redundant water supply line, about 3 or 4 miles out, 290 east, to our Canal well field, where we constructed a pump station and a 1 million gallon storage tank. Installed pressure reducing valves at Heritage Hill Country. I don't know if we have any residents here, but that was a much needed project. Yes, ma'am. That should solve your water pressure issues that you've been having for years out there. Purchased 12 new generators for lift stations, pump stations, our different wells in our water distribution system. During the ice storm, we had to borrow generators to keep the water flowing. We have purchased 12 so that we have that ability. We decommissioned one lift station. Our Public Works engineering staff got creative and took a maintenance-intensive lift station out of service. It's off the system. Completed the design of the East Main Street water rehab project. If you've noticed all the trench repairs on East Main Street in front of the hardware store, that is the project I'm talking about. Installed an additional pump at the Cross Mountain water pump station. Again, that delivers water to Boot Ranch. That water flows back into town, providing water service and pressure for about 1,500 residents in town. Replaced 4,200 feet of undersized sanitary sewer line in Friendship Lane, a non-destructive type installation, pipe bursting. Moving on to the electric department, replaced approximately 5,500 electric meters with more accurate, more dependable meters. The decorative lighting project, you've probably seen the poles on Main Street. Completed construction of new electric department building at our consolidated warehouse. I'm going to lump together engineering, street department, sanitation, and stormwater here. We have started, at least on the design of the South Atlanta Shared Use Bridge and Hoover Street Sidewalk project. It's a $900,000 grant with $100,000 contributed by the hotel developer across from HEB. We purchased a new chip spreader, which benefits our annual paving project. We do all of our paving in-house. I challenge anyone to find better streets community-wide than we have in Fredericksburg. I'll talk about that just a little bit more here in a minute. We expanded the Main Street garbage can program, hired a dedicated employee to handle just those cans to reduce overtime cost. Added an additional employee in the stormwater vegetation management program to allow for 2 separate crews to operate for a total of 5 employees. Received notice of award for a grant and loan funding from Texas Water Development Board for a North Llano Street stormwater project. This is part of about a $14 million stormwater project. This helps both North Llano and residents, especially just downstream of that. I think, Jeanette, you're part of that group that will benefit from that project. Purchased new street sweeper and implemented a quarterly residential street sweeping program. Purchased 2 additional portable message boards. Those come in handy anytime we have an emergency or an event. Moving on to development services, we did expand the code enforcement hours for our code enforcement officers to, again, help enforce, especially the short-term rental ordinance. We also awarded a contract for a new comprehensive plan. I mentioned that a little bit earlier. In terms of the organization itself, I wanted to mention a couple of things. First of all, we have the second lowest city tax rate in the state of Texas, even with the new rate that we just adopted. Second lowest electric rates in the region, very low competitive rates. Lowest sanitation rates in the region. Also coupled with our sanitation operation, we have for a long time offered a free weekly brush chipping program. Put your limbs out by the street and we'll chip those free of charge. We also have a free annual leaf pickup program. You can sweep your leaves to the street and they're magically gone by the end of the day. We do that a couple of times a year. In terms of infrastructure, and these are just items that are always in the budget, I mentioned how good our streets are and no potholes. When you listen to the mayor's message and how important it is to maintain the things that we're currently doing, we're not talking about these major infrastructure issues that we're asking the community to pay for, deferred maintenance that we've been pushing off that we have to raise taxes to pay for. I have a $100 bill in my pocket I've been carrying with me for 10 years. I've loosely told people that if you can find a pothole, I'll give you $100 for every one. I don't know any other community in the state of Texas that can do that, so I'm very proud of that fact. I already mentioned the water side. We have a very tight water system. Again, we're trying to be just very conscientious about the water that we do have, making sure that we save all of that we can. On the electric side, we do have a very well-maintained system, very professional employees, only 7 of them, 34 years, no lost time due to accidents. We pay these individuals well so that they stay with the city, so that they do work as a team. Their lives are literally in each other's hands every day. Our power outages in town, and I'm sure that a lot of you, I'm looking at Tim right over here. If you have a power outage, I'd be surprised if it lasted over an hour. I'd be surprised if it lasted over 30 minutes. During the ice storm, we had an 8-hour outage in town. We had a 800-hour outage outside the city limits that we were helping deal with. On the police department side, 35 sworn peace officers that responded to over 20,000 calls last year. Very low crime rate, very solid community outreach programs, building relationships with citizens. As I mentioned, added that 3rd school resource officer. On the fire EMS side, 32 full-time, 30 volunteer, 15 part-time employees, cross-trained fire and EMS, 24/7 service. These guys are going all the time, dealing with things that you can't even imagine dealing with. They respond to over 4,000 calls a year. And then I wanted to end with the golf course, something else I'm very proud of. When the council decided back in about 2016 to pursue leasing the golf course out, the city was subsidizing the golf course about $500,000-$600,000 a year out of the general fund. The last year we operated, at 2017, the subsidy was about $700,000. We hired Touchstone Golf to manage the golf course in 2018, January 1st, 2018, and they began making money in 21. So again, those are dollars that we can utilize for other things in the general fund instead of those taxpayer dollars. So again, I just wanted to highlight a few of the accomplishments, a few of the things that are included in the 2022 budget. We also have a lot of really good projects. If you haven't taken a look in the 23 budget, and we're committed to maintaining our infrastructure, maintaining a very high level of services for all of the citizens of Fredericksburg to enjoy.
Thank you.
And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, or if you would like to add anything to that.
Questions? Council comment? Anybody?
Not tonight.
I want to say another personal thanks to all the staff for all the work you did helping us with all this budget stuff. Great reminder, and as you can see, I'm rusty in the process of voting for it, but I did certainly enjoyed the research to get there. Items for future agenda?
Okay, Mayor, Council, as I mentioned, the next council meeting is Tuesday, October 4th, and we have this noticed as, or not noticed, we have it listed as a special meeting, work session. We do have the approval of the September 19th and 14th minutes. This will also be an opportunity to discuss the meeting format. This will be the first workshop that we've had. We've had some input from different council members regarding a monthly or even quarterly topic or theme. We will discuss the types of topics that we will add to the agenda for discussion. We'll visit with the council about coming up with your own list. We will talk a little bit more about the town hall meetings that we'll have and some of the discussion items that will come out of that. So again, the first meeting won't be the typical workshop. We'll talk more about the future of those workshop type meetings and try to get a format set for that. We also might have the need for an executive session item during that meeting, since it is a special meeting. We can take action on items during that meeting.
So if you have other things you want to put on that agenda, council, you know how to transact.
Right. You want me to move on to the 18th meeting?
No.
Discuss these items, or is that okay?
Okay, we're good.
All right.
All right, we're at the last thing here.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.